Shalom, family, and welcome to another Bible study that Yahweh has allowed for us to have here at the UCI located in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Tonight we're going to go over a few questions. It's a two-part question. It's a very interesting question, and Priest Esaac has touched on this subject over and over and over again, but we're going to go into it a little bit deeper. I want to say this. For new people who are new to the UCI, go out, check out the website. We've got tons of information out there. A lot of questions that you may have is probably already gotten answered. I know how it is from one of my cousin-in-laws. My wife had to go through something with a question. My wife directed her to a video, and I understand. Her response was, "That is 2 hours long." Come on, people. We owe Yahweh a percentage of time. That's 2 hours. We can sit down and watch. I'm sure people sat down and watched Wakanda, right? You sit down and watch movies for 2-3 hours, but when it comes to your salvation, you won't go and watch something because it's 2 hours. You just want that direct question answered, and you're out. We got to do better than that. And from the point and promo of my brother Mikael, visit theuci.org. Let's jump into this question.
You know what people have to do? A lot of things are said out in conversation and social media. You know, that's all we get, people's opinions and that sort of thing.
Right.
But if we really want to understand this, we have to get into what the book says and what the foundation of that says. And if you don't understand that, then people can say anything.
But then what does the scripture say? Study to show yourself approved.
Absolutely.
We just want the cliff notes.
Exactly.
And then we run on, but you don't have it. So even if you just get the cliff notes, somebody who is well versed can back you up, and then you look like you don't even know what you're talking about. And then you're going to lose faith in us thinking that we're not teaching you. No, you're not doing your due diligence because you don't want to watch a 2-hour video, or you don't want to be a part of a class that's 2 hours. You just want to get an instant answer and move on. And even with this two-part question tonight, there is so many different answers that we can go into that when it's all said and done, there's still going to be some scriptures left out.
Right. It's a lot.
So here's the first part. It says, "Shalom, congregation. I have a question I have been seeing more of lately as an argument against reparations, and that is since slavery is okay in the Bible, why should we get reparations?" So the thing that they're saying is, why should we get reparations since slavery is okay in the Bible? Now, I must tell you this, slavery is not okay in the Bible. You will not even find the word slavery in the Bible. Even the word slave you only find one time in the Bible. And when it comes up that one time, it's actually a question. But let's go look at a few things here. First thing we're going to look at is the definition of the word slave. And this is coming from Strong's. When you go into Strong's, what you get is H519. This is the Hebrew definition, Amah. Apparently a primitive word, a maid servant or female slave, handmaid, bondmaid, woman maid, maid servant.
Exactly.
Okay? So our definition of what we're thinking slave is not what the Hebrew definition is.
And then it goes, the root word from which it came from is shifkah. It's a feminine from an unused root, meaning to spread out as a family. A female slave as a member of the household, a bond handmaiden, bond servant, wench, bond woman, woman servant.
Now that you mentioned servant, let's look up the definition for servant. And even though I'm looking it up, I already know what it is. It's the exact same definition as slave. Once again, let me get here. So now we're looking up servant, which is what you will find all throughout the book, not slave or slavery. Servant, H519. Ama again. Apparently a primitive word, a maidservant or female slave. Handmaid, bondmaid, bondmaid woman, maid servant. So we're right back to servant and slave. What we have gotten in this captivity is a total different meaning to the word slave. Now let's look at servitude. As to be a servant means you're doing servitude. Servitude is H5658, once again, Hebrew definition. Abdon. Servitude, Abdon. Well, that is not the one I want. That's mentioning the place. Servitude is?
Abodah. Abodah.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hebrew H5656 Abodah means service, servile work, act, bondage, serve, servitude, effect, labor, and it's from a root word which means, that is abad, to work, to serve, to work for another, by labor, to serve as subjects, to serve Elohim, to serve with Levitical service, to work, to till the land, to be a servant, to work.
Exactly. Now, the last one I want to look at is bondage, because what we're just doing is setting the foundation for the words, so we understand what these words mean. Once again, like I said, you will not find slavery in the book, because the statement was that slavery was okayed in the Bible. Let's look at bondage. I've got H3533, kabash, a primitive root to tread down, hence negatively to disregard, positively to conquer, subjugate, violate, bring into bondage, force, keep under, subdue, bring into subjection. Do you have anything else on that, Mother Leah?
Pretty much. There are other root words in here that goes back to what we were looking at as far as servant. Abodah.
Okay.
To labor, to work, to serve. Labor of a servant. Labor, service of captives or subjects, service of Elohim. So it takes you back to the key word, which is servant. And once we get into the discussion of what is and is not allowed in the Bible, you will understand the use of these words.
Yes, ma'am. So with that said, let's go to Jeremiah chapter 2. Jeremiah chapter 2. And we're going to look at the one instance where this word slave appears in the Bible.
Where you want me to pick this up from?
Jeremiah chapter 2.
It's at 14.
Let's just read 1 through 14.
Okay. Verse 1. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Go and cry in the ears of Jerusalem, saying, Thus saith Yahweh, I remember thee, the kindness of your mouth, the love of your espousals, when you went after me in the wilderness, in a land that was not sown. Israel was holiness unto Yahweh, and the first fruits of his increase. All that devour him shall offend. Evil shall come upon them, saith Yahweh.
We see here the kindness of your youth, right? So Yahweh's remembering how we were in our young stage, before we became this puffed up nation started disregarding our Elohim and what he did for us. And even here, he just touched on a part of the second part of the question. It says, Israel was holiness unto Yahweh.
Mm-hmm. Thus says Yahweh, what iniquity have your fathers found in me, that they are gone far from me, and have walked after vanity, and are become vain?
Now you got to think about it. Yahweh's asking the question, what lawlessness have your fathers seen in me that you've turned against me?
Mm-hmm.
So we constantly hear people say stuff like, you know, if God was a good God, why do he let people suffer? Why does he let this happen to young babies or young children? Well, let's look at what we've done.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at our own deeds. Because now he's talking to the children of Israel. And his question is not, what have y'all done? He's going back to the fathers. What have your fathers done?
Mm-hmm. Well, see, and that's more of not understanding the foundation of this book. You know, the Torah is Yahweh's righteousness. Those are his ways. He said, these are my ways.
Mm-hmm.
My ways are not like your ways.
Mm-hmm.
These are my ways. And so if he's given us these things to walk in and to understand, not understanding them and not walking in them has caused all this trouble.
Right.
And so people that say that are saying it out of ignorance. They don't know what's in this book. I mean, it really is.
Right.
You know, you don't know what's in the book, and so, you know, you reason it the way you can, I guess. And so, but it would bring understanding as to what needs to happen if you understood what was written in the book.
And once you get an understanding of the book, it should ease a lot of the stress that you have, because
It should.
I remember before getting into the word and having an understanding, you have that question, why my people suffer so?
Exactly.
Why are we always going through this? But then as I got into the book and I got an understanding, it's like, hey, we got to go to course.
Yeah, I
Wow.
had a moment like that. I actually remember a prayer where I got on my knees and I was like, you don't understand what it is to be black. Now, when I realized that we were in this book,
Right.
oh, that was a moment where I felt, I actually laughed, because that was a moment where, you know, I realized I was talking to, you know, Yahshua was one of us. And so, you know, but that was my own ignorance.
Right. Yeah, I mean, once you get into this, into the thing and you understand situations like we seen all our folks dying in the streets. Yeah, we're upset. Yeah, it hurts. But there's certain things you got to look at. It says 2/3 of the children of Israel are going to be cut off.
Exactly.
And like I said, I had to grasp I keep hearing 2/3, but then I used to think 2/3 of the people. No, 2/3 of just Israel alone.
Right.
And then you get to something like, Yahweh says, I don't need all y'all. I just need one of a city and two of a family.
2/3 of Israel and 9/10 of the nations. Quite an equation.
So something's going to have to happen to get those numbers down to where it needs to be.
Exactly. But it just goes to show you from the sheer, I mean, the small size, 1/3. So that means 1/3 is going to hear, and 1/10 of the nations. The majority of people are not going to hear this word. And that's something that you have to just get into your spirit. Initially, when I came into the word and I heard that, you know, it was disappointing, but
it is what it
is. It is what it is.
Go ahead, my brother.
I was going to make a comment just to say I don't blame Yahweh in a sense, because walk down the street to one of them gas stations and talk to one person pumping their gas, you'll understand why he got to cut off 2/3 of us.
Okay. Go ahead, Mother Val.
Verse 6. Neither said they, where is Yahweh that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, that led us through the wilderness, through a land of desert and of pits, through a land of drought and of the shadow of death, through a land that no man passed through, and where no man dwelt. And I brought you into a plentiful country to eat the fruit thereof and the goodness thereof. But when you entered, you defiled my land and made mine heritage an abomination. The priest said not, where is Yahweh? And they that handle the law knew me not. The pastors also transgressed against me, and the prophets prophesied by Baal, and walked after things that do not profit.
So can you imagine that you spend your whole life working, struggling to set up a foundation for your kids, and something happens and you've been missing for months, and they living a lavish life, and none of them care to come and find where you at. Nobody comes to search and say, well, where's the man that provided all this for us? How would you feel? Your kids got the best of cars and lavish lifestyle. Your bank account is full. They just living the life. You just gone missing. Nobody says, man, anybody heard from him? Anybody seen him? You understand what our Elohim has gone through? Go ahead.
Verse 9. Wherefore I will yet plead with you, said Yahweh, and with your children's children will I plead. For pass over the isles of Chittim, and see, and send unto Kedar, and consider diligently, and see if there be such a thing. Hath a nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit.
So we go through this a lot too. Think about this. The Muslims still worship who they worship. Okay? The Egyptians still worship who they worship. But we're the only ones that keep flip-flopping, trying to be a part of everything that everybody else got going on. Doesn't this fit us?
Yes, it does. And I mean, we didn't wait until we got into this land to do it. We did it in the land of Israel, where we wanted to be like everybody else.
We over here mad because we can't have equal terms with the Mormons. That's their stuff. We mad because the Jehovah's Witnesses wouldn't let us in at one time. That's their stuff. We mad trying to be a Catholic priest. That's their stuff.
Well, the whole thing about our assimilation into, we were segregated. And we were unified when we were segregated. It's that integration that changed everything for us. And we're the only nation of people that have come here and integrated. Everybody else sticks to their own.
That is true.
Verse 12, be astonished, O ye heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid. Be ye very desolate, saith Yahweh. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled?
So this is the only time you're going to see the word slave. And if you look, it's a question mark. If you're in your book, is Israel a servant? Question mark. Is he a homeborn slave? Question mark. Why is he spoiled? Yahweh's asking a question. Is Israel a servant? Yes, we were supposed to be Yahweh's servant. But the slave that he's talking about is a servitude, servant.
Exactly.
Not the type of slavery that we went through in the transatlantic slave trade. And then he asks, why is he spoiled? We spoiled because we know the position we had with Yahweh.
And at the beginning of that sentence, it starts off with servant. And then by the middle, it says slave. And then it talks about us being spoiled. It's a progression. It's a down spiraling progression.
Yes, ma'am. That was it for that. Do you have anything you want to add? Any scripture you want to add behind that?
Not really there.
All right. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 2. It's still that question of slavery. Jump down to Jeremiah chapter 22. this is going to touch on this transatlantic slave trade. I think verse 13.
In verse 13. Woe unto him that buildeth his house by unrighteousness, and his chambers by wrong, that uses his neighbor's service without wages, and giveth him not for his work.
So this is the transatlantic slave trade. Woe unto him that builds his house by unrighteousness. You have to think about all of these corporate companies here in the United States, not just the United States, England, all of them benefited from this. Fortune 500 companies that built their houses on unrighteousness. What was the unrighteousness? The slaves that they took from out of Israel and came here, and then continues
In verse 14.
and his chambers by wrong. The way they dealt with us. In the beginning of what we read in Servitude, slave, it was a bondman, bondmaid. When you have a bond, it's something you can pay off.
Right, it's a debt.
Right. They never allowed for this debt to be paid off.
It's not a non-ending, perpetual, continuing saga, year after year, century after century.
Decades.
Yeah, exactly.
The next part says that uses his neighbor's service without wages. That's where the question is about reparations. At some point, the wages come due. There should be wages given to a man for his servitude. And giveth him not for his work. We were not paid for the work that we have done here. We've never been paid for the work that have done here. So Yirmiah, it's saying, woe unto him that builds his house. That's woe to the individual that goes about in this manner.
Exactly.
You have anything you wanted to add?
You know, I was looking at this in, I guess that's Syriac 21.
Ecclesiastes 21.
What is it, Ecclesiastes?
Yep.
Or is it?
It's the same. It's exactly the same phrase. Whether it's in Syriac or Ecclesiastes, it kind of says the exact same thing. Where is it? You know, brother, you were mentioning something earlier about, payment.
It's just the fact that nowadays, when you flip through YouTube and stuff, they're trying to diminish the whole slavery thing, saying, well, everybody was put in slavery. Everybody, the Irish were slaves. We were, but the thing about it was they're indentured servants. They were indentured, like
they were paying off something.
They were being paid off. Either they were paying off something, or they were getting 10 cents on a dollar for their work, but they were still being paid. We was just getting beat and treated terribly.
I mean, when you look at indentured servitude, a man could have been paying off the travel from England to here. So, okay, we put forth your travels. Now, you're going to have to work for us for the next 5 years to pay off that passage, that boat ticket, basically. You know what I mean? But like you said, we weren't brought here to pay off nothing. We were just here to build and set up. And you mentioned earlier about Jacob. When Jacob went to look a wife, he paid the bride price.
14 years, actually.
What was his bride price? Work it off. 7 years.
Exactly.
Right? But then he was tricked.
Right.
And then to get the one he really wanted, he said, hey, serve me another 7. So that would be indentured servitude.
Exactly.
Not slavery.
It's the system that Yahweh set up where people who were poor could survive.
Right.
Or if you had a debt, it could be paid. it wasn't supposed to be a situation where your life, you were sold into slavery with never an opportunity to be redeemed at all. And so, but this is what I mean about that down spiral and actually what happened, because the first, if you notice in this country, when they begin to talk about slavery and they try to whitewash it and get rid of it, they will tell you, oh, it was just indentured slavery. Oh, no, it started off that way, because that is the model that is in this Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It was indentured. It was a way for a person to become a part of another family, work, earn a decent living, survive. It could be by agreement. It could be for a certain period of time. You could sell yourself to pay off a debt if you owed money and you didn't have the money.
Right.
You could do that. You could find work by joining on to, but you were treated like a family member. You weren't out back in a slave shack with a yoke around your neck tied to a tree. That's not the type. It was indentured servitude, and it was a vehicle where we could survive. And once we get into, we should probably go there, into, I guess, Exodus 21 has a lot.
We can go there. While we're going there.
Let's see.
You know,
Let's just
brother
read some of this
Hananiah chimed in and said, when other nations were done with their captivity occupation, they returned back to their land.
Of course, because it was for a set period of time. But like I said, this had an end. It's what I tell people. It's what, Yaakov used to say, is what Elder Priest Isaac says all the time. We have to understand who we are and what we meant to Yahweh.
Right.
And what our purpose was. Then you will understand why what we did took a down spiral and such a slide, and it became so derogatory. But Yahweh even talks about that, because in the book, he talks about, when their slavery had an end, you so very heavily laid your yoke upon them. And so, it's as though our servitude never has an end. But that's a different kind of.
And I mean, even when they say, why don't y'all go back to Africa? They're not talking about supplying us a way to go back to Africa.
Well, and then why don't they go back to Europe? And why don't they go back to Russia? And nobody is from this country. This country belonged to nobody. So when they say that, they need to go back as well. And that's what the book says. Everybody's going to return to his own land ultimately.
Did you find
yes,
what you were looking
Exodus 21. And I guess start that at verse 1.
Okay.
Now these are the judgments which you shall set before them. If you buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. And if he came in, meaning that he doesn't owe you, they
Right.
made us pay
For our freedom.
for our freedom.
Mm-hmm. And you had to walk with them papers.
Exactly. And then you
And-
still weren't free.
Right,
You can
because
find
if you-
yourself back in
Exactly.
slavery. Verse 3. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever.
And, while we're there, you have people who have a problem with men and earrings. An awl, bore his ear through with an awl. That means he's piercing his ear to show perpetual servitude. So when you see the oil in my ear, I got a perpetual servitude to Yahweh.
Well, let's go back a moment. In the book of Exodus, when they were at the mount, they had just come out of Egypt.
All right.
Yahweh, you my servants. It says they got earrings from the men
and the boys.
and the boys and the women.
Right.
Exactly.
So we get to this whole
We were
men
servants
wearing
to
it.
Yah.
Exactly. Here it go right here. The stipulations being laid. If you say I love my master and I don't want to leave, this is what the master's supposed to do.
Okay.
Just to show that it's still not over with. The amendment, is it the 13th Amendment that says that there's no more slavery? It says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime. And what did they do to us?
Yeah,
They
we
make you
went
into
through that a
criminal.
couple weeks ago.
It's crazy.
By the language they use, by the derogatory, by the I felt threatened, by the this, all of it. It's to criminalize you. So they can't put you back in.
Because they cannot survive without that free labor. It's
It-
built on the back of free labor. And they need that free labor to sustain themselves. As much as they say they don't want us here.
It's an economic benefit that the whole world has gained from. Verse 7, and if a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as the men servants do. If she please not her master who has betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed to sell her unto, let me start that again. If she please not her master who has betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed to sell her unto a strange nation. He shall have no power, seeing he has dealt deceitfully with her.
Now, haven't we been sold to strange people over and over constantly?
And
Yeah.
see, and this is talking about if a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, okay, why would a man do that? And this is the way that you bring yourself out of poverty.
Right.
Verse 9, and if he had betrothed her unto his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. If he take him another wife, and I think that's the end of
Right.
that.
So here's Yahweh's stipulation of servitude. If you want to say slavery. But this is servitude. These are the stipulations. So at no point in time was it to be this ongoing mistreatment.
Exactly. And even, we were sold, but it talks about making merchandise of us. Deuteronomy 24:7 says, if a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel and making merchandise of him or selling him, then that thief shall die, and you shall put away the evil from among you. And so there are a bunch of things in here that talk about, things that govern how people deal with other people.
Right.
And this country is guilty of violating just about all of them.
And let's even look at where Yahweh even begins to get this whole concept in telling us how you're supposed to deal with servitude. Let's go to Exodus chapter 1. Exodus chapter 1. Let's look at the first servitude when it comes to our people. I would start at verse 8 through 14.
Verse 8. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
So this is fear. The beginning it says, he knew not Joseph. Joseph was in a position of rulership in Egypt. Now you've got somebody who doesn't know Yosef, doesn't know what Yosef was all about, doesn't know his people, but now is afraid of this people that he sees is becoming more than them. Even when it says, become more than us and fight with our enemies, you'll look at, there was also a statement where other nations have been enslaved. But you will look at the opportunity that other people had to join on to those countries
Exactly.
and become a part of that nation or that society. He's not giving that option here. Go ahead.
Verse 11. Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses.
So, taskmasters, let's just say slave driver. Go ahead.
But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor.
So at this point, they laying it on hard. Okay? They're laying it on hard, rigor, servitude. They're not taking it easy. Okay? All right, so let's go to Exodus 11. They working them to the bone. Exodus 11, we can start at verse 1.
Verse 1. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, Yet I will bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go hence. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out hence altogether. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold.
So for all that rigor, that hard bondage, Yahweh saying, on your way out, this is how you're going to get your reparations.
Exactly.
This is how you're going to get paid. So we can talk about reparations right now and all the debate and this and the back and forth. The first one, we didn't get it till we was on our way out. And that's the way it's going to be again.
Exactly.
But we'll get there. Go ahead, Mother Leo.
And verse 3. And Yahweh gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moshe was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. And Moshe said, Thus saith Yahweh, about midnight I will go out into the midst of Egypt.
That's good right there. So we can see, no matter how you want to deal with us, whatever the debates are about reparations, it doesn't matter. This is all in Yahweh's hand. He took care of the first time, and I got to trust he's going to take care of it again.
You know, and even, well, another example, before that, you know, Abraham had a servant, Eleazar, and apparently, you know, he was very faithful in Abraham's house. And when Abraham was told he was going to have a son and that didn't materialize, he was like, well, you know, use Eleazar, this man in my house. Okay, and so this man is your servant.
Right.
But he was a member of the family. You know, he wasn't anybody who was chained, yoked, and abused. He was a servant.
Which is what we dealt here with, you know, just not the servitude. We had to deal with harsh treatment. The raping of not just women, but men also. That's something that we don't want to touch on, but there was raping of men that was going on. We have read where a boy was sold as a harlot. That means as a prostitute. So I think it's part of the question too, reparations in this country, yeah, we'd just be giving it all right back.
And it does say that in Deuteronomy.
And it's the same thing in Egypt. Had we barred of our neighbors in Egypt and stayed in Egypt, then guess what? They'll be looking for payback.
Mm-hmm.
You borrowed my stuff. Can I have it back? Man, you got to borrow when you're on your way out. Not going to see them again. Go ahead, sir.
Am I wrong to look at it in this way as far as reparation go, not only like monetarily, but also for the things that they did? But we know Yahweh said that, all these the things that they did, he will recompense it back on them. But
Right.
it just came to me, reparation is not only material things, it's also for the evil things that they
Right.
done to us.
Right.
Psychological.
Yeah, it just,
It
it
is.
just came.
And the other thing about that, if you remember, when the Emancipation Proclamation came about, there was a talk about 40 acres and a mule.
Right.
Well, and yeah, where is it? But if you know that that's governed by Torah, because when you get into Deuteronomy, let's
do
can
it.
we go Deuteronomy? Let's Deuteronomy 15 and read verses 12 through 15.
You said Deuteronomy.
15.
Okay.
And it says, and if your brother and Hebrew man or Hebrew woman be sold unto you and serve you 6 years, then in the 7th year you shall let him go free from you. And when you send him out free from you, you shall not let him go away empty. You shall furnish him liberally out of your flock, and out of your floor, and out of your winepress. Of that wherewith Yahweh thy Elohim has blessed you, you shall give unto him. For you shall remember that you were bondmen in the land of Egypt, and Yahweh your Elohim redeemed you. Therefore I command this thing this day. And of course, now see, what we have in this book, they want to follow indentured servitude. They want to follow examples of this and examples of that. There are guidelines in here that says if you maim or harm a slave,
Right.
what's supposed to happen
Right.
to you? None of that took place. See, they pick and choose what they want to follow. But it's clear in here as what's supposed to happen. There are bases for reparations in this book if you know what's in the book. Exactly like I said.
And when you look at this last one, verse 13, when you send him out free from you, you shall not let him go away empty. You got to think about even what you were talking about earlier. When Jacob was leaving out, right?
Yep.
He left with plenty, regardless of
Exactly.
what Laban thought. He said, hey, if the cattle come out this way, these are yours. If the cattle come out this way, these are mine. And Yahweh made sure he left out plenty.
It was a way to pay off a debt and for a poor man to not have to die
Right.
to survive.
I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Keeping it real, I want Yahweh to give us the representative, not them folks that done put us on stage, because they ain't gonna do right.
Well, we ain't going to do right.
No, I'm saying they gonna give us like $100,000 if we gonna go spend it
No.
at Macy's.
Even if we get it, we ain't going to do right with it.
Definitely.
No.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm about me a Cadillac.
Exactly. See?
I ain't gonna lie.
He over here wanting a Cadillac. See?
I want a
We ain't
Cadillac.
going to do right.
CTS, baby.
And what is that going to do?
No, I'm just being funny.
But see, that's the whole thing. And we were talking about 2/3 of our people being cut off.
Right.
If you don't understand that Yahweh created us to serve him, and that's your purpose, and all of these things that we get are for that purpose, then people are going to take that and go that way. I mean, now we understand it's the same thing that, most everyone is doing. We even have people that will start speak, oh yes, we're Israel, we're the children of Israel. Do you see them walking? Do you see their change in culture? Do you see their change in diet? Do you see their change?
Well, it's just some good knowledge to get you in the lake of fire.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
You
It'd be a
know-
purple flame, a blue flame. It really is a flame with a lot of knowledge. Knowledge destroys. It's the very example that we had in the beginning. They wanted knowledge, and they got it.
You know what's interesting? Something's been on me. It's like you see people who've been walking, and then no longer walking, but yet they want to send one of their family members to say, hey, can you all deal with this person for me to bring up in the word? But let me see, they're going to come here for the Sabbath for 2 hours and then come back into your environment for how many hours? If you're not walking, the 2 hours that they put in here on the Sabbath doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
When they come back into your environment, into your household, it overrides everything because you're not walking.
Exactly. And that's what I say. It's wonderful when you hear people talk about the fact that we're Israel, but then generally nothing comes after that. Nothing comes after that. And then in a lot of cases, they're trying to do it in the same place where they have served Baal, Allah, you know, and all these other false gods. What is that? That's nothing.
You see no difference between them and,
Exactly.
you know, it's, once again, like he said, the nations have not changed their gods. 9 times out of 10, you can tell a Muslim when you see a Muslim.
Right.
Because they're going to stick with their culture. They're going to show you who they're representing.
Exactly.
We don't do that. We blow in the wind.
And that kind of leads right up to
Go ahead.
what I guess the brother asked or the sister asked about the question, what makes us so special?
You know, before you go there was one more. Did you ever find that Sirach 21?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Did we not read that?
No, ma'am.
It says, he that buildeth his house with other men's money is like one that gathereth himself stones for the tomb of his burial.
Okay, so you heaping up a bunch of stones for your death. Because you building everything that you got with another man's money. And you might say, well, we didn't have no money. No, our labor was our money. We were not paid for our labor.
Exactly. And so the basis for that in Torah says that a man is supposed to be paid his wage when he works. And I mean,
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day, exactly. And of course, you know, we talk about that, how even in this capitalism, in this country, you know, they hold you a week out, 2 weeks out, sometimes even 3 and 4 weeks out before you get paid.
Right. So I don't understand how it even came to that, because at first everybody used to get paid weekly.
Exactly.
And then, so who was the genius that came up with this bi-weekly thing?
Well, it allows them to keep your money and to loan it out. It's about money.
And then at the end
Money,
of the day,
money.
then I found out that the military, you get paid once a month.
So they can keep your money and make money with your money. It's about money. It's about money.
And then you go into business and you have a business, then you have to learn net 15 and net 30 and net 60. And for those who don't understand, once you finish the job, it might take 15 days before that company pays you for your work that you've done. They don't care if it took you 1 day to do it, or 30 days out, or 60 days out. And then what it does is creates other avenues for other people, because now you have companies that come in and what factoring companies. So what the factoring company comes in and says, well, you know, I can get your money up front. I'll pay you up front. You know, okay, but I'm going to deduct a percentage of that money. So it creates all these loopholes for other people to just keep digging away at your money. Because who need their money right away but us? 9 times out of 10 when we go into business, we already in the hole. Now you going to tell me I need to wait 30 to 60 days before I get my first pay.
But now it makes sense why Yahweh is so angry with the way this country operates and why he's going to tear it down, because they don't do things in righteousness. And it's not, you know, you talk about, I never owned any slaves, but you and your family are rich because of the evils that were done to our people. And so you are the benefactor of that blood money and that wealth. Everything you have. And so does that mean, if you get caught with stolen goods, what do they do to you? No, I'm being very honest.
You're accomplished.
Let's use their law
Mhm.
and apply it. If you get caught with stolen
Possession is
goods,
9/10 of the law. You know, verse 9 of that says, the congregation of the wicked is like tow wrapped together, and the end of them is a flame of fire to destroy them. That's the end, the lake of fire.
and that's what it says.
So you can live lusciously right now. We can keep debating about reparations. I'm going to try to work on my salvation so I don't end up in the lake of fire worrying about reparations, which I have no control over.
And that's the other thing, you know, reparations are going to be given to us when that time comes.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter how many times the powers that be deny it, debate it. When Yahweh pulls that string and the time has come, the time will come.
And even with the debate of reparations, why would a people not feel that they should be compensated for the work that they've done? Yes, we can't do anything about it, but there should be some thought process of, okay, when are we going to get paid for this? How are we going to get paid for it? You get into the book and then you understand how we going to get paid for it and when we going to get paid for it. We can't just keep saying, oh, let's just chuck it up to experience. No, let's figure out how it happens. Everybody else has gotten paid. Let's look at the Jewish people. They're getting reparations from countries that didn't do anything to them.
Exactly.
You talking about 400 years versus what, 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
And that was not slavery. That was not slavery.
Just like the Ukrainians now are receiving benefits that it's people in this country, our people, don't have, don't get, and they won't try to assist. But that's just the tantamount nature of their unrighteousness.
Hey, let your infuriation guide you to this book and look at what's the end result.
This is where your hope lies.
Did you have something else there, Mother Leah?
Oh,
I know
no.
you was going into that, what, the second part of that?
Well,
Let me
yeah, you know, we were talking about being a servant to Yah, and that it's the reason that we were created. He's like, well,
Right.
why is it so special?
You know, before that, I think you had Isaiah 60, something in Isaiah 60 that you'd mentioned you wanted to touch on.
Well, that kind of gets to the end of, you know, what the
Okay,
Gentiles
all
are
right.
going to bring.
Okay.
I guess we need to go into part 2 first.
Okay. So part 2 of
So-
that question is, let me get back to it.
Let's see.
Everybody has slaves, so what makes us so special? Okay? And us in quotation.
Keep going.
To tell the truth, I cannot answer this question because it seems they are making a valid point, but I do not have the mental tools to answer this question one way or another. Please help me understand, how is our slavery different from others? Also, I want to make it clear that I do not believe in asking our enemies to give us reparations, because they are either going to find a way to get it back and or lowball the amount.
See, but see, but let's just see, and I you can tell, you know, to no fault of his, you know, because like I said, I spoke earlier about my own ignorance,
Right.
you know, before I came into this word, but you can tell that he doesn't know what is written in the book.
Or her.
Or her, if it's a female. And so that's why it's important that we're talking about these things and bringing it out so people will understand. You know, we're not asking them to give them something. You're not giving us
Right.
anything. We earned this. This is due us, regardless as to how much they want to deny it.
Right.
And Torah backs it up.
And they themselves have admitted, England has admitted, all
Of
these people
course.
have admitted that they owe us, but they can't pay us. They are not going to pay us. So the part 2 of that question, everybody has slaves, so what makes us special? I think we kind of touched in the beginning of the whole slavery and how everybody else dealt with the other nations when they were slaves. It was not this type of a slavery. There was indentured servitude. They all had an opportunity to work off whatever debt it was. Our difference is there was never any ending for us to work out our difference. We had to pay those of us who were able to for freedom. And it still stood in the balance of whoever wanted to trick us. We had to walk around with freedom papers. If somebody decided to take your freedom papers and burn them, you had no proof that you was a free man or a free woman.
Exactly.
You could end up back on somebody's plantation. And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't that the premise of 12 years a slave?
It was. It was.
So, and we still deal with that right now in the prison industrial complex. They're still getting free labor. They have found a way to put it on the books that if you are a prisoner, back into slavery.
Exactly. And now you know why, the police force, and granted, the police force we know was started as slave catchers. They were slave catchers. And unfortunately, we see people, their hearts are breaking over this situation, with these black cops recently. But unfortunately, it's that thing that, my grandmother always told me, don't ever forget where you come from. You forget you're black, they're going to remind you.
Right.
They're going to put these cops under that prison.
Yeah, they forgot what they were.
Of course they did. And that's the thing that we need to understand, the history that this country has perpetrated against black people. And, we can't get these jobs and go out in the corporate world and forget that these are our people. They deserve fair treatment just like the next man.
What did Steve say? You gonna let him in the big house? That's the problem. We done made a few in the big house and we done forgot. We got the big head while being in the big house. If y'all don't know, that's Django. So let's touch on Deuteronomy chapter 7 there, Mother Lael. I know you have some stuff on this as well. Because it's to answer that, what makes us so special. We didn't make ourselves special. So let's touch on what makes us so special. Deuteronomy chapter 7, and let's start at verse 6.
Verse 6. For you are a holy people unto Yahweh, thy Elohim. Yahweh, thy Elohim, has chosen you to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth.
There it is. That's what makes us so special. Go ahead.
Yahweh did not set his love upon you, nor choose you because you were more in number than any people, for you were the fewest of all people. But because Yahweh loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, has Yahweh brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know therefore that Yahweh thy Elohim, he is Elohim, the faithful Elohim, which keeps covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations, and repayeth them that hate him to their face, to destroy them. He will not be slack to him that hateth him, he will repay him to his face. You shall therefore keep the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which I command thee this day to do them.
So part of understanding what makes us so special, the commandments, the law, statutes, and judgments were given to us. We had a duty that we did not follow. Our duty was then to turn around and teach the nations.
Exactly. And that's what we were talking about, earlier. We were supposed to be Yahweh's instrument to bring righteousness upon the face of the earth. And while the nations follow us, they follow us in all of these unrighteous deeds
all the wrongdoings
that we do.
We walking around sagging. What are the nations doing? They sagging. We came up with rap music. What the nations want to do is rap music. No matter what we do, they're in it. I mean, we talked about it recently when we were going through the perm thing. We kind of touched on it slightly about the Asian guy going through the process, sitting in the salon to have what? His hair look like an afro. So imagine these special people, had we done what we were supposed to do, then the whole world would be in a different state. We caused the world to be topsy-turvy. Scriptures even tells us that the earth moans and groans waiting for the manifestation of the children of Elohim.
Right. It does.
Go ahead.
Did you want to go a little further?
Yes, please.
Verse
12.
12. Wherefore it shall come to pass, if you hearken to these judgments and keep and do them, that Yahweh thy Elohim shall keep unto you the covenant and the mercy which he sware unto your fathers, and he will love you and bless you and multiply you. He will also bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land, your corn and your wine and your oil, the increase of your kind and the flocks of your sheep, and in the land which he sware unto your fathers to give thee. You shall be blessed above all people. There shall not be male or female barren among you or among your cattle. And Yahweh will take away from you all sicknesses. He will put none of the evil diseases of Egypt which you knowest upon you, but will lay them upon all them that hate you, and shall consume all the people which Yahweh thy Elohim shall deliver you. Your eyes shall have no pity upon them, neither shall you serve their gods, for that will be a snare unto you. If you shall say in your heart, these nations are more than I, how can I dispossess them? You shall not be afraid of them, but shall remember what Yahweh thy Elohim did unto Pharaoh and unto all Egypt.
So this is the stance that we're actually in right now. If you shall say in your heart, these nations are more than I, how can I dispossess them? That's where we are in our own minds right now. That's why we just roll over and take what happens. Not understanding that we're in a position because we walked away from our Elohim.
Exactly.
We walked away from the laws, statutes, commandments, judgments given into our hands. That was it for that.
Can we go to Isaiah 49?
Sure.
I would like to go to Isaiah 49 and read verses 5 through 7. We were talking about why are we so special? You know, why are we different? Isaiah 49 verses 5 through 7.
Okay. I'm there.
Verse 5. And now, saith Yahweh, that formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him. Though Israel be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of Yahweh, and my Elohim shall be my strength. And he said, it is a light thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give you for a light to the Gentiles, that you mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. And thus saith Yahweh, the Redeemer of Israel and his Holy One, to him whom man despiseth, to him whom the nations abhorreth, to a servant of rulers, kings shall see you and arise. Princes also shall worship, because of Yahweh that is faithful and the Holy One of Israel, and he shall choose you.
Now, you know, it's funny in verse 6, and he said, it is a light thing that you should be my servant. Right back to what we started all this out. We were supposed to be his servants. Servitude. I like the last part here. It says, where is it? Verse 6. I will also give you for a light to the Gentiles. That means you're that example that everybody should want to follow. That you may be my salvation onto the end of the earth. All people should be looking towards us on how they should conduct themselves.
Exactly.
That's what makes us so special. But like we just discussed, they're looking to us for all the wrong things.
Exactly.
And we are giving them all the wrong things. You have to think about something as simple as music, how the corruption of our music is causing continuous murders, deaths,
It is.
round and round. Something just as simple as the music, which would happen. The nations got together and plotted to put out this gangster rap. And we can see how this gangster rap has taken off. But the thing about it is, nobody takes into account that it's going to affect their own children as well. The children of the strangers have also grabbed hold to this gangster rap. So it's also influencing them, not just us. But it's us that put it out, and hence we have an influence on the world. Were you finished with that, Himalaya?
Yeah.
You know, I want to also jump to Deuteronomy 28. And everybody, Deuteronomy 28, I'm tired of them going to Deuteronomy 28. They're beating it to death. There they go again. They're pulling the race card. That's gonna be considered the Hebrew race card, Deuteronomy 28.
Okay.
Deuteronomy 28. And we're just going to read verse 47 through 50. Just to kind of jump back on that specialty and slavery.
Mm.
28 verse 47.
47, start at 47.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you serve not Yahweh thy Elohim with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things, therefore shall you serve your enemies, which Yahweh shall send against you in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed you. And Yahweh shall bring a nation against you from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue you shall not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young.
And we can look throughout the history of slavery and see that this all took place with our people. No favor was shown. Like I mentioned earlier, a boy was sold for a harlot.
Exactly.
A boy was sold as a prostitute, and a girl was given for wine. No regards for the young. No regard to male or female. They were raping both males and females. But why? Because you serve not Yahweh your Elohim with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. So basically, Yahweh said, you don't want to serve me? Go serve the nations.
You know, it was talking about the fact that we were supposed to bring forth righteousness, and when you get into Isaiah 26, it talks about, you know, this is Isaiah, and he's talking about the fact that, you know, we have not done what Yahweh sent us to do. And it says, you know, Yahweh in trouble, this is verse 16. It says, Yahweh in trouble, they have visited you, and they poured out a prayer when your chastening was upon them. But like a woman with a child that draweth near the time of her delivery is in pain and crieth out in her pangs, so have we been in your sight, O Yahweh. We have been with child, we have been in pain, we have, as it were, brought forth wind. We have not wrought any deliverance in the earth, neither have the inhabitants of the world fallen. You're pushing and you're pushing, you bring forth the baby, you're not bringing forth the baby, you're bringing forth wind. It's flatulence.
And when you
It's
bring
nothing.
when you bringing forth a baby, you bringing forth what? Life.
Life,
What it
not
says.
wind.
What it says. There it goes. We have not wrought any deliverance in the earth. So you look at child, delivering a child. He said you brought forth no deliverance, so we look at the child. And then let's look at the spiritual side. What souls have we saved? Your actions have not allowed for the nations to be saved.
And it's using that example brought forth a child
Right.
because it's to be born again.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
were supposed to bring deliverance so people can be born again. And we brought forth nothing. When? When I read the first time I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, that is such a vivid moment.
And, I mean, we're still there.
Yes.
You know, we were discussing earlier about, you know, when you get to understand that you're Israel. Okay, so now you know you're Israel. Now what are you going to do?
And that's the point.
Just running around saying, I'm Israel, I'm Israel. What are you bringing forth? Exactly.
Exactly.
It's just wind coming out your mouth. I'm Israel, I'm Israel, I'm Israel. So what?
Exactly. You could be Israel standing in the flame.
I mean, that right there is a great statement. I want to look at Zechariah chapter 2.
Yes, sir. Come on, get it, brother.
And we can start at verse 1.
Zechariah chapter 2, verse 1. I lifted up mine eyes again and looked, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. Then said I, Whither goest thou? And he said unto me, To measure Jerusalem, to see what is the breadth thereof, and what is the length thereof. And behold, the angel that talked with me went forth, and another angel went out to meet him, and said unto him, Run, speak to this young man, saying, Jerusalem shall be inhabited as towns without walls, for the multitude of men and cattle therein. For I, saith Yahweh, will be unto her a wall of fire round about, and will be the glory in the midst of her. Ho, ho, come forth, and flee from the land of the north, saith Yahweh. For I have spread you abroad as the four winds of the heaven, said Yahweh. Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon. For thus saith Yahweh of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that touches you touches the apple of his eye.
There's another part of that question what makes us so special. We are the apple of Yahweh's eye. He who touches you touches the apple of his eye. I didn't say it. I didn't write it. I'm just reading it.
Yes, sir.
Or you read it.
Yes, sir.
I'm just touching on it.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And Zechariah is just telling you how Yahweh feels about us as a people.
Right.
Now, it also says in verse 7, Deliver yourself, O Zion, that dwelleth with the daughter of Babylon.
That is specific.
I can change that and say, Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwells in America.
Come on now.
Or deliver thyself, O so-called black American.
Come on.
Well, however you want to put it.
And the deliverance is having and knowing these laws, statutes, and judgments. Not just knowing them. We've got to walk in them. This is the only way for us to deliver ourselves. Like we say, going around saying I'm Israel, and not doing anything, all you bringing forth is wind.
Exactly.
This is what we have to do to deliver ourselves. Go ahead.
Verse 9. For behold, I will shake mine hand upon them, and they shall be a spoil to their servants, and you shall know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I come, and I will dwell in the midst of you, said Yahweh.
Now, it's interesting, verse 9. For behold, I will shake mine hand upon them, right? And they shall be a spoil to their servants. The nations which spoiled you. I'm going to shake my hand over the nations, and they shall be a spoil to their servants. Who are their servants? Coming out of Egypt, we spoiled, they said, we spoiled the Egyptians, right? Why? When we took the gold and the silver and the jewels from them. And here we go again. These nations shall be a spoil to their servants. Who are their servants? I'm just saying, I see a lot of here that shows why we special.
It is, and it doesn't stop there. Yeah, you said in the beginning that there's a whole lot of things we're leaving out here.
Go ahead.
Verse 11, and many nations shall be joined to Yahweh in that day, and shall be my people. And I will dwell in the midst of you, and you shall know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me unto you.
Now, verse 11 also touches on the I know I'm Israel, and it's all about Israel. Yes, we are the apple of his eye. But then he also lets us know that this is open to other people. And many nations shall be joined to Yahweh in that day, and shall be my people. But in other words, in order for them to be his people, they have to accept who we are. But first, we've got to accept who we are.
And that's a big one.
Not just accept who we are, but accept the charge that's been placed upon us.
Exactly.
Because without that charge and us following what we have to follow through, then these people are not going to be able to be joined on to Yahweh.
And that's the conversation that comes up when you look at, like this Kyrie situation. And for this brother, he was searching. So, that's the beginning of his journey to search and to really, try to figure out who is Yahweh and what this whole thing is about. But normally you will have people that will join on to that and start speaking of Israel, and there's not much behind it. And so when other people challenge them or they, come and jam them up, then they're shut up, jammed up, you can tell they have low self-esteem. They really can't explain beyond, I know I'm Israel, because that's all you know.
But it goes right back to what I said in the beginning. Study to show yourself approved.
Exactly.
If you jump on here just for us to answer a question and you run away with that question, when somebody who's more versed in this word comes and asks you something and you're sitting there like, well, I wasn't properly prepared.
Exactly.
Because what? You want to avoid that 2-hour class that went through all of this. Or you want to avoid that 2-hour Bible study that covered all of this already. Or you don't want to go to theuci.org and check out the videos that are there in abundance.
And I have to say, you should. One of the things that our teacher, Esaac mentions him often, Yaakov ben Israel, and he used to say, he said, I have given you the foundation of this book, an understanding of the foundation, and you can go anywhere and get in a discussion and they're not going to jam you up because you actually know what's written. And if you have the foundation, then the foundation is, we know about foundation.
Right.
You know anything about building a house. It's the rock, it's the bedrock.
Yep.
It's the bottom. And so the house is built from the bedrock up. And so that foundation is firm, if it is a firm foundation. And so that is the foundation that priest Esaac teaches his followers, like he learned from his teacher,
And when you talk about that foundation, what it says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways.
Exactly.
So if you jump in here, and then you jump into somebody else's website, and you jump into somebody else's website, and you jump in other, and you get in a situation and you jammed up, it's because you haven't set a
And they have a
sturdy
lot of,
foundation.
there's a lot of checkerboard doctrines out there. You know, they just kind of jump around. They do. Mm-hmm.
But, we got to build ourselves up. There's a saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. And I like to say, hey, the individual that I was, it took 30 years to build that individual. He ain't going to go away in 30 minutes. But I ain't got another 30 years to get it right. So the more we jump around, the more rocky and unstable we're making ourselves.
Exactly.
I even have to go back and look at classes. Even though I'm a part of a class, I go back and look at the class and be like, well, I didn't catch that. Because for the most part, if we're in the book and I'm reading, I'm trying to stay focused on reading or where I need to be.
Exactly.
And then there's times when Priest Esaac is explaining something, but I'm stuck on something. And I am way over there. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, I didn't see this before. As Yahweh done said, okay, let me bring you up to this next level. And I'm sitting there, and he done dropped a whole bunch of jewels, but I'm stuck here. He's sitting here, and none of that's coming this way, because I'm here. Then I go back and listen to a class and be like, when did you say that? I've even gone to him and said, man, I was reading the scripture and this. And go back and listen to class. Man, you mentioned that in class, didn't you? Damn, I was somewhere else. But it goes to show that even studying, how Yahweh will bring everybody on one accord. Okay, yeah, I let you miss all of this, but you went and found it, and I brought you up here, and then realized that, okay, y'all are there.
Right. It's also the reason why we shouldn't get tired, because it's one book.
Right.
And so we go over things. But as you grow, don't get tired of going over scripture, because there are going to be things that you're going to miss the first time out and not understand it because you don't have that foundation yet. So then when you go back, as you grow, you pick up things and you pick up more things and you pick up more things as you grow. And that's when Yahweh brings you along in that way.
You talking about that growth and that foundation. I used to tell people, when you come in and all you know is the A and B, stick your conversation to A and B. Somebody's talking to you, you stick with A and B, A and B. This is what they go to C, you bring them back, A and B, A and B. This is what I know, A and B, A and B. But then you make a mental note of what C was about, A and B, and then you come back to class and you mention C. So then you get an understanding of C. Now when you go back out, you go A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, and you stay in A, B, C. Don't let nobody pull you outside of A, B, C. When they pull you out, you pull them back into A, B, C. And never be afraid to say, you know what? Let me get back to you on that. Least you say something and make yourself look bad. And now this person has no faith in what you're saying. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know what? Let me get back to you on that. I don't have the answer. Let me get back to you on that. More than you put something out there and it's wrong. But constant growth. I remember something that from a kid, we all know the story of Egypt. We've heard the story of Egypt over and over. And I was grown, and I remember when this one thing blew me away. Pharaoh will not hearken unto you, because I'll harden his heart. Go do this. Tell Pharaoh this. Pharaoh will not hearken unto you, because I'm going to harden his heart. Get down to the next verse. Go do this. But he'll not hearken unto you, because I'll harden his heart. What? I'm like, wait a minute. This man ain't even have a chance. You setting me up to go talk to this man, but you telling me that he ain't going to listen to me because you going to harden his heart. I'm sitting there like, boy, that's a setup. But in the same token, I don't care what I said. You just follow your instructions. So what? I told you he ain't gonna listen to what, but you still need to go do what I told you to go do.
And I mean, he wasn't. If you understood what the pharaohs were, they were God on earth. You know, so what you talking about God? What God? I'm God. You know, that's the attitude. And so when the plague started, he just wanted some relief. Basically, that's about as far as that went. And verse 12, and Yahweh shall inherit Yehudah, his portion in the Holy Land, and shall choose Jerusalem again. Be silent, O all flesh, before Yahweh, for he is raised up out of his holy habitation.
All right. So once again, if we want to understand what makes us so special, because we're the apple of his eye. And the nations, I think a lot of them already know that. I mean, you've got to think about, who was it, the president of Egypt some years back? Who talked about, what did he say? There will never be peace over in Israel because the Jews left black and came back white?
Exactly.
And then, this is a touchy name right here. Mr. Adolf said what? America has the Jews of the Most High. He said it. Yeah, they hold the Jews of the Most High. And he meant Jews, not jewels, the Jews. Wait till they find out who they have captive. So, is it something that we're making up? You've got people of other nations saying and telling who we are. We're the ones who don't know who we are. We're the ones who don't understand how special we are. So here you got this Caucasian man, the tyrant of all tyrants, saying that America is holding the jewels of the Most High. Then you got this other man of another nation saying the Jews left black but came back white. That wasn't a black man saying that. That wasn't us Hebrew Israelites running around saying that. It was someone of another nation. It's constantly, if you listen, other people know who we are. Helen Thomas said what? The people over there are occupiers. If they want land, give them land in Poland, where they come from.
You know, and I often tell people the history of the Maccabees and Esdras, where it talks about all these confederacies and these alliances that were made when the Greeks started coming into the land and when the Romans started coming into the land. And like I said, all you have to do is understand the fact that, and if you understand too, that it was Dawid who caused the Edomites to learn our culture.
Right.
Or they were going to have to get up out the land. And so that was the beginning of them being introduced to the culture. Then the Maccabees period takes place where the Greeks come in and the Romans come in. And by the time we get back in the land, Herod, an Edomite, is sitting on the throne and Yahshua is standing in front of him. Now, I'm just saying, do the math.
Do you have something else you want to touch on? I've got Isaiah 60.
Let's do that. Yeah, that's a good place to go.
As we're coming to the end here, let's go touch on Isaiah 60. I mean, we've given, outside of this book, right? If we look at ourselves as a people, just look at what we have given the world. There's got to be something about us.
Exactly.
If you close the book and just look at the inventions and the stuff that we've given to the world, then you have to ask yourself, what is it about us?
I asked myself that question as a child. I remember it. I was 8. And I can't go beyond that other than to say I would look at all the accomplishments and the things that we were doing out in the world, and I just knew it was something special, but I couldn't take it beyond that. I couldn't say anything else about it.
And you know, what's today's date under their calendar? They Black History Month, right?
Oh.
So let's just look at all the inventions and stuff we've given to the world, and a lot of it free of cost.
Right.
But the one thing that we should have given them, we didn't.
Exactly.
No, you're right. But not just Yahweh, Yahweh's ways. I mean, the world functions because of what we have given the world. A lot of chaos was removed because of our inventions. So, I mean, I can go outside the book and show why we're a special people, but then I got to go inside the book to figure out why the special people going through hell and high water.
Exactly.
That's the only way I get an understanding of why these special people going through hell and high water, who have an influence on the whole world. It's part of the curses, man.
It is.
But even before then, you can see there's always been divisions amongst us.
Exactly.
The problem is, because all we see is us, we don't see the divisions amongst the nations. Because the nations will come together and seem cohesive or united just to keep us down. Because when you go and you start looking back into the history, Louisiana was owned by who? So the French and the who fought to get that out the way. And then you constantly got to look at, if you look at the Italians don't like these people over here. The Romans and the Greeks had problems. Okay? The Germans and the Russians got issues. The Chinese and Japanese got issues. You see what I'm saying? But because this is us, all we see is us, and we don't see everybody else. I mean, you go and you look at old movies just about up north, New York, Chicago, and all these places. You see that the Irish had their pockets. As a matter of fact, you're Irish, most of your police officers were Irish.
Right.
And then the Irish didn't care for these people, and then the unions were created so they could keep their people in certain positions. But we don't see all that because that is not our neighborhoods. That is not for us. All we see is us, and that everybody's against us, and how we're not united. They're not united either. They're just united against us. It says chapter 60. We can start at verse 1.
Verse 1. Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of Yahweh is risen upon you. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But Yahweh shall arise upon you, and his glory shall be seen upon you.
And who is this you that he's talking about?
He's talking to Israel.
Exactly.
And the Gentiles shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising.
So we're that special that the Gentiles shall come to our light, which our light is walking in Yahweh's law, statutes, judgments, walking in these commandments.
Exactly.
That is our light. Not only just the Gentiles, but we so special that kings and kings to the brightness of your rising. Right now we're falling. Ain't no kings coming to us. As we can see, nobody really cares about what happens to us in this country. Nobody's coming to our defense. But at our rising, all of this changes.
And it's the reason why Yahweh rises to come to our defense. Verse 4. Lift up thine eyes around about and see, all they gather themselves together. They come to you. Your son shall come from afar, and your daughter shall be nursed at your side.
You know what's interesting about that, Mother Leah? It says, lift up your eyes round about and see. All they gather themselves together, they come to you. Now, if you ain't versed in the word, you ain't studied nothing, when they come to you, what you got to say? What you have to share? Is it just going to be more wind?
You got a job to do.
Now, for all these people who are spreading this doctrine that Israel's the only people that's going to be saved,
Yeah,
how shocked you going to be when you see all these people?
that's what I mean about that checkerboard doctrine.
Right.
Where they jump around and that stuff is not real.
So you get that misplaced hate in your heart and in your head. When these people come to you, how are you going to treat them? How are you going to deal with them?
And that's such a contradiction. I mean, that is a contradiction all the way back in the Old Testament and the New.
Mm-hmm.
Either one of them is a contradiction. Verse 5, then you shall see and flow together, and your heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto you. The forces of the Gentiles shall come unto you.
Reparations.
Mm-hmm.
Forces. Their military might.
Yep.
Their money. Their businesses.
Yep. Let them talk, let them deny it, let them just roll around, just let them do it.
Go ahead.
Verse 6, the multitude of camels shall cover thee, the dromedaries of Midian and Ephah, all they from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and incense. They shall show forth the praises of Yahweh.
So here we go. You want reparations, right? You're going to have to go collect it and probably get robbed. When we're in this situation, they're going to bring it to you.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't got to worry about going to go get it. You ain't got to worry about fighting for it.
Mm-hmm.
They going to bring it to you.
And it didn't say go get money. It said go get gold,
Exactly.
gold and silver. See, we don't want, no, we want your money. Your paper money with paint on it.
Come on now. Okay.
I keep asking people one thing. I've said this to many people. Gold and silver will always and has always had value.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the Messiah, what was he betrayed for?
30 pieces of silver.
Okay? But here's the thing is we all want to get gold, 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 as if silver does not have value.
Mm-hmm.
He was sold for 30 pieces of silver, not $30,000. They had money in that time. Because what he says, whose penny and superscription is this? So they had money. But even the betrayer said what? Give me that silver. Gave him up for silver. Money existed. Right? But he coveted, he made a deal for 30 pieces of silver. Go ahead.
Verse 7, all the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered together unto you. The rams of Naboth shall minister unto you. They shall come up with acceptance on mine altar, and I will glorify the house of my glory. Who are these that fly as a cloud, and as the doves to their windows? Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them.
Not that said money? Their money.
Not their money.
Their money.
Their little paper money.
No.
Unto the name of Yahweh thy Elohim, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he has glorified you. And the sons of strangers shall build up your walls, and their kings shall minister unto you. For in my wrath I smote you, but in my favor I have had mercy on you.
And what was the wrath? What was his wrath about?
It was
We decided not to serve him.
that down spiral.
You don't want to serve me? Then go serve these people. I was angry with you. But now, I've gotten over my anger.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and make amends. Come on back home. But you can't come home in any kind of way. You're going to have to get yourself together. And then we can sit down and discuss this and talk about you coming back into my house. It's a relationship.
Exactly.
We're going to have to do a little bit of counseling here. We're going to have to sit down and talk. You know what I'm saying? Let's work this out. Go ahead.
Verse 11. Therefore, your gate shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day or night, that men may bring unto you the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. For the nation and kingdom that will not serve you shall perish. Yea, those nations shall utterly be wasted.
Now, you know, part of that question, let me go back to this question. This is the part I agree with. Also, I want to make it clear that I do not believe in asking our enemies to give us reparations, because they're either going to find a way to get it back and or lowball the amount. See, we ain't asking them for nothing.
And you're not going to be here when you get it. You're going to be here and you're going to be on your way out the door.
But look about the lowballing, right? It's so much coming your way that the gate's going to have to be open continually. We ain't going to get that here. And the problem is this. We're talking reparations, right? But we're talking reparations and we mostly focus in where? On America? We were scattered to the four corners of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
They owe, all of them owe us. Scattered, torn apart, families separated. Now all of y'all owe us. So if we just got reparations from America alone, we got lowballed.
Yep.
So I'm not asking, I'm with you. I ain't asking my enemies for nothing. I'm going to let Yahweh deal with it. Hey, I might be on the gate saying, boy, look. Is that another one? What the heck? Yeah, on the watchtower watching, hey, another caravan coming in. Boy. Hey, man, we're not going to get that here. You talking about that's so much. You ain't got to worry about running out of money. It's an abundance continually coming in. And then not only that, just the same way that we have built this country, what does it say? And the sons of strangers shall build up your walls.
Mm-hmm.
Man, we built this place.
We built just like we built this, and that's why when you look at what he's saying to them, it is, what were we told? You reap what you sow.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We did it.
Yep.
Your turn.
Mm-hmm. Payback.
Mm-hmm.
So let's handle this business. But with all that said, we are not going to be those brutal, cruel people. That's why I said we got to get this misplaced hate out of our hearts and out of our minds and understand why we were put in this situation. These people didn't just jump up and say, let's go get these people. No, we walked away from our Elohim. So you want to be mad? Be mad at your forefathers.
I think that's a part of that jealousy that Yahweh said we were going to go through because of, now that we understand who we are, now that we don't want anybody else to come in the door, or they don't anyway, let's say. So I think that's that jealousy that they have to work through. Verse 13. The glory of Lebanon shall come unto you, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. The sons also of them that afflicted you shall come bending unto you, And all they that despise you shall bow themselves down at the soles of your feet, and they shall call you the city of Yahweh, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel.
So, ain't no city of Zion here in this country. So it's not happening in this country. I know we got Zion Baptist Church and all these other, but there ain't no city of Zion.
Exactly.
Okay?
Verse 15. Whereas you have been forsaken and hated, so that no man went through you, I will make you an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations.
And this is what I was talking about earlier. Whereas you have been forsaken and hated, so that no man went through you.
Exactly.
Stop and look and see what nation is fighting our cause. What country is coming to our aid? Yeah, you've got countries out there saying, hey, y'all can come to this country on the continent. There's countries over on the continent that's welcoming people to come and stay in their country and making passage. But who, so that no man went through you, no man stood up for you, no man fought the fight for you. They titled us African Americans. But who in Africa is fighting to save the so-called African Americans? Who is calling out the injustice? You let something happen to someone of another nation here and see what happens. They got countries to back them. Forsaken because we don't know where we come from. So therefore, who gonna stand up for you? Okay, Ethiopians stand up for you? What? No, we can't prove that you Ethiopians. Let me see. Sierra Leone? No, we can't prove that they come from here. But you let something happen to a Chinese, China got something to say. Japan or any of them. You talk about reparations, go look at the history of this country and see if other nations have not gotten reparations for stuff that has happened to them here. It's been discussed in Bible study many times. Why do you think the Vietnamese have all of these nail salons? Go figure out what happened to them here, and then you'll understand how they got established. We talked about 40 acres and a mule earlier.
Exactly.
The Native Americans have reservations, even though their own people then turn around and messed with that, but they were given something for what happened to them. There was reverse reparations that took place where the slave masters, the slave masters got money for the loss of their property.
And from what I understand, that was just most recently paid off in modern this day.
Exactly.
It was that much.
Somebody's getting it, but it ain't the people who went through the hell.
You know, so to the audience out there, if you believe that asking them for reparations, we're not asking them for anything. This is what we've worked for. This is what we've earned. This is what we've been denied all of these years.
Yep.
Verse 16. You shall also suck the milk of the Gentiles and shall suck the breast of kings, and you shall know that I, Yahweh, am your Savior and your Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. So
let's get that in our head. The only way we can be saved is by Yahweh. The only way we can be redeemed is by Yahweh. How? Understand his laws, statutes, judgments, his commandments, and walk in them. Walk in this culture. This is not a religion. I don't care what nobody wants to say. This is not a religion. This is a way of life. It's a culture. So it amazes me how somebody can be a Sabbath-day Hebrew.
Exactly.
And 9 times out of 10, your Sabbath-day Hebrew is not even a Sabbath-day Hebrew for a complete 24 hours. They just put on culture clothes to come to church and probably peeling it off in the parking lot as they're leaving.
That's real. I've seen it happen.
Like I said, I can tell a Muslim 9 times out of 10 when I see one out in the streets. if we walk in the culture and put away the hate, then that light that Yahweh is talking about will be shined upon us. The light is on us right now, but for the wrong reason.
Mm-hmm.
The light has always been on us. But the only way we're going to be saved is by Yahweh. The only way we're going to be redeemed is by Yahweh. Got to understand what makes us special, like the question asked.
Mm-hmm.
We are the light bearers.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Verse 17, for brass I will bring gold, and for iron I will bring silver, and for wood brass, and for stones iron. I will also make your officers peace, and your exactors righteousness.
Now, you look at all this stuff. It's all precious metals. So imagine that you sitting there saying, man, I want this brass lamp. Yahweh give you a gold lamp. What? No. For brass, I'm going to give you gold. No. For iron, I'm going to bring you silver. So everything is being stepped up on the next level. The same way we have to get in our book and step up to the next level. Knowing who you are and doing something about it is two different things. Step up to that next level. Don't just give me a bunch of wind. Give me an example. Show me an example of you walking in culture instead of you just giving me, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Okay, cool.
Right.
And, I'm happy for you.
Verse 18, violence shall no more be heard in your land, wasting nor destruction within your borders. But you shall call your walls salvation and your gates praise. The sun shall be no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto you. But Yahweh shall be unto you an everlasting light, and thy Elohim your glory. Your sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon withdraw itself. For Yahweh shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of your mourning shall be ended. Your people shall also be all righteous.
And this is what the whole foundation was from the beginning. We were supposed to all be righteous.
And that one about violence not being heard in our land anymore. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's not the case over there right now.
No. Your people shall be all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, Yahweh, will hasten it in his time.
And bottom line, you're waiting on reparations. It ain't going to happen until Yahweh decides it is time.
Absolutely.
That's all we're going to do for this evening. Let's leave out with a prayer. My brother Mishael, can you lead us out in prayer, please, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
All right, brothers, make sure your heads are uncovered. Sisters, heads covered as we face the east towards the holy city, Jerusalem. Merciful Father Yah, we thank you for this opportunity, Almighty Yahweh. We thank you for the great questions that you continue to put upon your people's heart to ask, Almighty Yahweh. And thank you for the clarification and the edification, Almighty Yahweh, not only to us that are here, but for those who are listening through the airways, Almighty Yahweh. I pray, Father Yah, that it may be strength unto our people, Almighty Yahweh, and that it may be a way for those who are still, struggling to turn away from the ways of the world, Almighty Yahweh, to seek you and to turn and to at least try your ways, to try your commandments, your statutes, and your ordinance, Almighty Yahweh, this culture that you've given unto us, Almighty Yahweh. I pray, Father Yah, that you may chip away at the heart of stone from them, Almighty Yahweh, and give them a heart of flesh, Almighty Yahweh, so your word could penetrate their heart, Almighty Yahweh. I know that you said there's a remnant, Almighty Yahweh, but there are still many of us out there who truly are seeking you, Almighty Yahweh, but haven't found your way. And I pray that this class may be that way, Almighty Yahweh. We thank you for keeping your hedge of protection around about us, allowing us to make it here safely. We ask that you may continue to keep that hedge of protection around us as we journey unto our houses, Almighty Yahweh. We pray, Father Yah, that there may be many more days like this, Almighty Yahweh, to add unto the understanding that you've given unto us, Almighty Yahweh. We thank you for this little sanctuary. Pray that you may continue to bless it and continue to bless and protect the leaders, Almighty Yahweh. We ask of these things in Yeshua's holy name. Amen and hallelujah.
Amen. Hallelujah.